Well, hello, everybody. It's been a while. Welcome to the Defending the Line podcast. I am TJ, your host. It's been about 2 weeks since the last time I did an episode, and that was because I had a back injury. And so I've been fighting through that. It actually makes it really, really difficult to sit. Obviously, I'm sitting throughout this podcast, and that's obviously an issue. So the 2 weeks prior in the episode, and then last week, I couldn't sit. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't sit at work. It's just been a constant problem. I've gone to the chiropractor. I've done all this stuff. So I could go too much into it, but I've been in a lot of pain. I'm in a lot of pain right now. I just took some Tylenols or whatever just before the podcast started. So hopefully I can make it through. This might be a shorter kind of episode than we're used to, but we're gonna try to get through it. So last episode, episode 5, so we're on 6 now. We did speak with Jake from Shield 616. Awesome organization. Love that place. And he spoke to us about what the organization does, how it affects the officers and first responders. And for anybody that had missed that episode, Shield 616 is all about getting body armor, exterior body armor and helmets for first responders. And they do that for police, firefighters, and EMS. And so amazing organization. And they do it for free. They go out into the public. They ask for money, donations from community members, churches, all sorts of different organizations. And I think it's about $1,500, or no, it might be a little bit more than that, for a full set. And they donate that set to an officer in that organization. So it's pretty amazing. I can't believe they do it, and I'm shocked. And so it's pretty sweet. I hope they get international. I hope they can supply everybody and get everybody the gear that they need so that these officers are safe and firefighters and EMS are safe on every call that they go to. So looks like my internet connection's a little fluctuating, so hopefully everything's all right. But if there's any issues in chat here, obviously we are live in Twitch. And so in chat, you can let me know if you have any issues, but it should be okay. Looks like it's fluctuating a little bit. If you're listening to this episode, you might be on Pandora, you might be on Spotify, you might be on some other iHeartRadio, things like that. So I greatly appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Obviously, some of the stuff we do on the podcast is visual. You won't see that type of stuff, but that's okay. At least you can hear it. And I'll kind of walk through any videos that I show and content like that in any episode. So thank you for listening. And if you're catching us on YouTube, thank you very much. And down below, there's a subscribe button. Please click on that. And same thing with Twitch, and same thing with Pandora and some of these other Spotify, Anchor. They have some of these subscribe buttons you can click on and hopefully get alert when the new episode goes up. And I try to get the audio up within about 12 hours, generally right after the episode. I kind of render that into an audio format and then I upload it. And then the video format, YouTube can take a little while. It depends on the length of the episode. The hour and a half episode we had, I think it was episode 3, took overnight, fell asleep, just let the computer running. So we'll get it up as soon as we can. So just subscribe and it'll let you know when it's up there. I appreciate you. Obviously, this podcast is all about defending the line, defending those who defend us. So that's the law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, dispatchers, even military as well. There's military police out there, there's security police out there, there's all these different entities out there that are doing law enforcement as well and doing first responder activities. And we've got to recognize them, and we've got to defend them. We've got to get behind them. We've got to push for better treatment of these first responders, as well as benefits and everything else that they should be entitled to given the nature of their work. So last episode, we also talked about the Breonna Taylor shooting, kind of broke it down a little bit, talked about some of the things that showed up in the reports. All the reports are online, which is pretty amazing. I've done law enforcement for 14 years. I don't recall any agency ever releasing all of the documents for a case that in depth, that quickly, that readily available. Generally speaking, if you want the copies of all that stuff, you would go to the department and say, hey, I would like it, put in a request. You might have to pay for it, and then you get a copy of it. And these guys just uploaded it right to the website, and you can get it off there. Amazing, amazing stuff. So there's a lot of content in there. Is it a tragedy that someone got shot and potentially the crossfire that occurred? Yes. You know, the boyfriend fired one round out, hit the sergeant. They returned fire, apparently hit her, and you know, obviously that's a tragedy. But you know, if you don't shoot the cops when they're banging on your door, then they're probably not going to shoot back, and things aren't going to happen like that. So ultimately, that occurred. I did hear since then the officer that had been shot by the suspect, by the boyfriend, is now suing him. I'm not sure what kind of money he's going to get or compensation for that, but it was interesting to hear a law enforcement officer suing someone. You don't normally hear that because I think departments frown upon it. I know mine did. They didn't want us going out and suing people, suspects for things, assaults and things like that. And I got stitches on my eyebrow that to this day my eyebrows is messed up and doesn't even, you know, function correctly. I didn't sue that person for that. So, you know, that stuff happens, and maybe the sergeant's not going to be able to return to duty. I don't know what his status is at this point. I know he got out of the hospital pretty quick. It was a leg injury, so he should be okay. But you know, if he chooses to retire or something like that, maybe he can use this money to do that. So I know it's frowned upon. It's refreshing to see that, because I think at this stage, in this kind of climate and environment that we're in, I think law enforcement is due to not be treated like garbage. We're going to touch a little bit on that in the episode today. What we're going to do is we're going to play a little bit of a video clip. It's just a short clip. For those watching, you're going to be able to see what looks like a gentleman with a paramedic's hat, just kind of reacting to a video. The audio is what's important, and the audio is kind of the point to this whole thing. And it talks about an incident where a child comes in and finds their parents murdered, whether it was a murder-suicide, I have no idea, but the audio appears to be genuine. It is a dispatcher talking to a child, and I think we forget about dispatchers. I think we overlook dispatchers. I think if you ask a police officer if they consider a dispatcher to be a first responder, they'll probably say no, because they don't respond. But they do answer the phone first. They do talk to victims and suspects and witnesses on the phone first. They are literally the first person to contact and respond to someone that's calling. So I believe they are first responders. But I imagine if you did a poll out there somewhere and asked the kind of general law enforcement population, they probably would say no. I would beg to differ. So we're going to play that here in a little bit. We're also going to talk or discuss the talk. That was a hot topic about 2 weeks ago. The big topic, and we're going to talk about that as well, is the election right now. We will go into that here in a minute, but I don't want to get too involved. The talk is obviously a hot topic of certain communities, and I think what I say hopefully will help with that. We're going to talk about misconceptions of law enforcement. There's 5 that I chose, and we're going to talk about those as well. And hopefully, if we have enough time with everything, we're going to go ahead and do a little breakdown of a 10-second video clip, which is pretty amazing. Oddly enough, this video clip I was going to show 2 weeks ago. So this episode 2 weeks ago, but obviously with the back injury, I couldn't get on here, couldn't show it. And ultimately, Donut Operator, if you know of him on YouTube and Twitch, he did a breakdown of this, and I have no idea what it is. It just popped up today in my Twitter feed. So after I do this, I'm going to go watch that and see what he says, because it's always pretty entertaining. but it is the same exact video, coincidentally enough. So we're going to cover all that stuff, but I did want to touch briefly on the election. We are Friday now into the election, and we have no president. We have no new president. We have the existing president, but we don't know who the new one is. You're looking at Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Nevada, just refusing, I guess. I don't know what the hell's going on with it, but they're not calling the count and who won in those states. Nevada being the worst, and Alaska too, but I can kind of see Alaska. They're so spread out. I imagine a county doing voting in a far reach county is going to probably have to put them on an airplane and fly them back somewhere. I mean, that's nonsense. So I don't even consider Alaska to be an issue. But some of these other ones, guys, you've been doing this for years. I don't know why you're screwing this up so bad. So a couple of these states just have literally nothing. They just said 50% reported. 3 days later, same thing. So I don't know what's going on, but I will say this, and this is what I wanted to touch on, is that this podcast will never endorse a political party, will never endorse a political figure, we may have them on as guests, but we will never endorse them in their running for whatever office that they're running for. I want to stay out of politics with this podcast. I don't want anything to do with it. And I think it leads to problems, and it leads to misconceptions and thoughts that we don't need to have. But I will say that this election for first responders, law enforcement specifically, is probably the most important election in the last probably 20 years. Just looking at the two candidates, knowing what they say and do in terms of law enforcement and public order and crime and all sorts of stuff, man, this is a really important election. And the fact that we're having a lot of issues with the election is incredibly disappointing and looking to be a huge legal problem. You know, I was looking at Twitter and looking online and all these different things of, you know, Sharpies being used in Arizona when a Sharpie invalidates a vote. The count in Michigan that jumped 130,000 votes in favor of one candidate and 0 in the other one, which then ended up being some sort of error that they said, and you know, just all this back and forth silly nonsense that's occurring there. I saw something like 6,000 votes in one state for people that have died, you know, had voted for a candidate. And like I said, we will never endorse a candidate. I won't say which one I hope wins. I won't talk about it. I won't discuss that. But it is a very important election. It's incredibly disappointing to see where we're at right now. I made a half joke on Twitter to say that we right now are the divided states of America. And I think it's 100% accurate. You know, you look at the statistics, the numbers that are coming into each of these states, with the exception of maybe like 2, like Alaska and another one, you're seeing numbers that are like 2% different, you know, 3% different, you know, the 54% to, you know, whatever, at most 54% to one candidate and the rest to the other one. And it's just, that is a split. When you look at that, that is a country that is divided. Whether they're real votes or not, or whatever, if there's scams going, you know, whatever, that may account for 10% of the votes or whatever. But you look at these numbers, and we are a divided country. We have 2 major political parties in the United States, and the 2 major political parties have been at each other's throats. It is disgusting. It is juvenile, the way that these people have been acting the last probably 4 years at least, if not longer. These 2 political parties butting heads and constantly throwing turds at one another. It is just absolutely horrendous. I am disappointed in this government. I am ashamed of my government more often than not. And I think that as it relates to first responders, we need to take care of our law enforcement. We need to take care of the paramedics and the firefighters and the dispatchers and the military and everybody else. And we're squabbling and we're doing all this nonsense and we're hurting these people. And ultimately, I think, that coupled with, you look at the media is just absolute trash. I'm sorry, but everything you get on there is an agenda. It's a network agenda. And so whatever their agenda is whatever you're going to get force fed. And we're going to touch on that exact point in the topic up ahead. A very specific example of the agenda, the kind of point that they want to make, that law enforcement is ill-trained, and they made it, and they have no real basis for it, but they say it, and they get away with it. And I think the climate, the environment we're in right now is so hostile when it comes to first responders. And I think it's because of stuff like that. It's because of our media. It's because of our government. They are not backing first responders like they're supposed to, or at least they should. And here we are where we're at. I am no longer a police officer. I was for 14 years. I am way too opinionated to stay in law enforcement, so I don't think I will end up ever going back. I would probably get fired for the stuff I say on the podcast as well as on Twitter and things like that. But I just think the things that are happening to these first responders is wrong. I think this environment was wrong. I think the government and everything that they're doing is wrong. And I don't have a solution. I don't have an answer. I'm just saying this is what I see, my observations. And I hope at some point we can come together, we can unify, hopefully without something like another 9/11, because honestly, on 9/12, we were probably the most unified country in our history, if not probably back to the early days of World War II. I would say that's probably when we were at most together. I think some people got a little disenfranchised probably towards 1945, the beginning of 45, end of 44. And I think they were probably getting a little tired of it. But I think as a country as a whole, the day after September 11th, we were all together. We loved our law enforcement. We loved our firefighters. We loved our neighbors. We loved our friends. We loved their, the people we hated. We were Americans. We were United States of America. And we need to get back to that mindset. I just hope it's not from a tragedy, but just understand that that's where we're at right now. This is a very important election, and it's incredibly disappointing to see where it's going. It's incredibly disappointing to see just the turds that are flying back and forth, and I hope things change. I hope things get better. So I want to play this video real quick. It is powerful. It is sad. Viewer discretion is advised, kind of thing. There's nothing offensive that you'll see or hear, but it is a little bit emotional. I'm going to mute my mic and allow you to listen to it.
911, where's your emergency?
Hello.
Hello. Is everything okay?
My mommy and daddy,
Uh-huh.
I think there's a bullet on the floor.
There's a what?
And there's blood coming out of my dad's mouth, and he fell off the bed.
He did. Where's Mommy at?
I don't know. I think they're dead.
What do you mean, sweetheart?
I don't know.
Okay, your daddy's on the floor. How old are you?
I'm 5 years old, and I have a dog in the house.
Okay, baby, okay.
And
Let me get somebody right over to you. Did you go in your mommy and daddy's room?
and there's blood.
All over the place?
Not all over. There's blood on the bed and blood on the floor.
Oh, my goodness. And you have your little doggie with you?
And 3 cats.
Well, and you got some cats, too?
3 cats and 1 dog.
I'll be honest, I listened to that. I probably listened to it a half dozen times. The first time I heard that, I was gutted. Like, it was, I can't believe that, kind of situation. And, to have a child that young and to know what's going on at that age is mind blowing. Oh, oh, there's a bullet on the floor. There's blood over here. It's over here. I've got my dog. I got cats in the house, and as a dispatcher, they're going to ask questions that are relevant to the scene and things like that to try to make sure everything's safe. She didn't ask any questions about a suspect. I think the dispatcher probably assumed what had happened. But, you know, the dispatcher sits there, takes this call, probably, took some noise complaint call before or some nonsense, whatever. And then to get this call, it's, oh man, like if this dispatcher didn't hang up the phone at the end of this call, and I'm sure there was more to it. It's just that was the kind of the meat and potatoes of the phone call, but I'm sure they stayed on the line till people got there and things like that. But if they didn't hang up the phone and then just lose it, I would be impressed. If they didn't get up, walk away, and have to take a break for a while, I would be impressed. I don't know how well I would have done in that situation. And I think we don't give enough credit to dispatchers. I've called and talked to dispatchers, and it was cool, back and forth, cool, blah, blah, blah. All right, thanks. And then I've called to report something, and I needed some help a little bit, and I got frustrated with them. And, I hear a video like this, a clip like this, and oh God, this is the stuff they deal with. And we had Blue Help on. We talked to them about kind of PTSD and things that first responders run into. And, it's stuff like this that fills that bucket up, and that was the analogy I used was your bucket fills up, it overflows, and that's how you lose it. Right. And I think calls like this for dispatchers got to be just destroying them. And this is every day. This is every day. This is every day. And we don't acknowledge it. We don't recognize it. We just, it's something that they're in an office somewhere on the end of a phone, and we kind of forget about them. And, this podcast is dedicated to all first responders, but honestly, let's be realistic. We've been heavy on law enforcement. We've talked a lot about law enforcement. We're going to do some more topics on law enforcement today. But I would love to get more into dispatchers. I would love to get into firefighters. I know our firefighters in Colorado and in California and some of these other states are dealing with some absolute craziness. They're going to sleep for 2, 3, 4 hours, waking up and going right into a fire, in these forest fires. And they're fighting fires all day long. They go back, they go to sleep for a couple hours, and they're back at it again. And this is that bucket. That bucket is filling up. It's stressful. It's a lot to deal with. And we don't recognize it, and we don't acknowledge it. And when we had Blue Help on, we gave some phone numbers, some website links and things like that to seek help. And I even did a poll on Twitter where I think 70% or so said that they are struggling from some sort of mental health situation as a first responder, and they have not sought out help. And I mean, this is the stuff right here that does it. This is, if you can't listen to this and just your heart just fall to your stomach, and if you don't feel awful, I don't know what to tell you. Honestly, I felt awful. So I don't know what happened with it. I don't know the story behind that video. I just came upon it on Twitter, and it's unreal. I think we don't take care of our first responders. We don't take care of our dispatchers. We don't acknowledge our dispatchers. And that's I think the point of the video. The guy's throwing a thumbs up, and there's some text on the screen for those that got to watch it. And it just, talks about recognizing these dispatchers. And I think we need to do better. So powerful audio, that stuff is all the time. And I've got on my phone a number of radio traffic and stuff. Like I got hold of dispatch and said, hey, can you download all the audio and send it to me for various different things I've been involved in? And every once in a while I'll play it just to listen to it and kind of reminisce, but this would not be one of those times that I would want to reminisce. But it's unreal the stuff that these guys deal with on a daily basis and in such quantity. There's a lot. So I hope everything worked out well for the dispatcher. I really hope. I don't even know if I can say. I hope it worked out well for the kid. It probably did not, but I hope that kid can keep going, moving forward, and find at least some good portion of their life to be happy, and enjoy. That's rough. That's rough. And it's at an age where you're going to still remember. Like when you're 2 years old, you don't remember. You're 3, 4, you're probably not going to remember. But when you're 5, you're going to remember. You're going to remember what happened. You're going to remember at 12. You're going to remember at 18. You're going to remember at 20. That's not going to escape you. So hopefully that kid got some help that they needed. So the kind of short topic of this episode was the talk. And I've heard the talk online. I've seen videos, commercials, ads, or whatever. Make sure you have the talk with your kids. And I'm not talking the birds and the bees. What I'm talking about is being contacted by law enforcement. And so a lot of parents feel the need across the country to have this talk with their children and tell them, what to expect when they're contacted by police and how to behave and things like that. And I see some good kind of premise behind it. I see some good coming out of it. It's how you word it. And I think the majority of the people that are going to have this talk are people that feel strongly, probably negatively on law enforcement. So really the talk that you're having is just reinforcing negative stereotypes and negative things with law enforcement. So I think every parent should have the talk. I think it needs to be done appropriately. I would even recommend and encourage parents to meet with an officer. Have the officer come in, whether it's a school and it's 15 kids and the parents are there, or it's just you at your house and you want your kid to hear, everything. I encourage parents to bring a law enforcement officer into their place and sit down and say, I want to have this talk with my kid so that they understand what to do when they're contacted by law enforcement, how to act, and so forth, so forth. Allow the law enforcement officer to tell them what their experiences have been, and then give them tips on what to do. And then you as a parent can also give tips. And hopefully they're not stereotypical, like, you're going to get pulled over because of your race, or you're going to get pulled over because of this, or, the stereotypical things that are just not true. And so I encourage everybody to seek out law enforcement and get them involved. And I would happily have sat down, if I got a call like, hey, this parent wants you to come to their house to talk to their child about being contacted by police. I'd be like, what? This is dumb. And when I get there and I learn what's happening, I would be like, wow, this is actually incredible. This is good parenting. This is amazing. And this is a call I would want to do every day, every shift, if I had that opportunity to go in and sit down with kids. And what I would tell them is, I would say, you may at some point in your life, or many times in your life, be contacted by police. Whether it's for a traffic violation, whether it's because you matched the description of something, whether you're whatever, okay, X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, all the way through. Whatever the reason, you may be in contact with police. Cooperate, remain calm, Don't make any sudden movements. Okay. So those are three big things. Don't reach for any weapons. Don't try to drive away. Don't run. If you tell them those five things, that's pretty safe that their contact with law enforcement is going to make it so that they go home. That the law enforcement officer goes home and that the child goes home, or teenager or adult or whatever they are, whatever age they're contacted by law enforcement. So I think parents need to do better. I think we have a parenting problem, a society problem, a community problem right now that I think a lot of kids, they think they have to run. They think they, need to fight law enforcement. They need to pull guns. They need to do all these things. They need to drive away, steal cars. They need to do this. They need to do all these things because it's the community they grow up in. It's the friends that they have. It's the experiences that they had. It's seeing their father or mother or whatever in prison. And they're just following the cycle and just going back through it. So I feel like you need to have this talk, but you need to be careful with content. I think when the talk is inappropriate is when you instill those stereotypes. So you tell your son or daughter, you're going to get contacted by police because they're racist. That is not the talk. That is not helpful. That is not bringing the community together. That is driving a wedge between the community and law enforcement. That is furthering the cycle because you probably grew up and was contacted by police, maybe negatively. Sure. And that's your experience, and you're allowed to have your experiences, and you're allowed to have your feelings because of experiences. But law enforcement literally changes day by day. And so you, in the contact that you were in 1985 or 95, was a completely different environment for law enforcement than it is right now. This nonsense you see on television, the one shooting video that you see out of millions of contacts is not, it doesn't show what law enforcement is. The one video that you're seeing a week, a month, a year, whatever it is, that one video, you're like, oh, they killed that guy for no reason. You're entitled to your opinion, and you're more than welcome to think that. And I can tell you 99.9% of the time, the law enforcement officer is not going to kill someone for no reason. And so I think we have these stereotypes and we have the cycle, and we need to break the cycle. And you just need to be very careful with the talk. So I encourage parents, please have this discussion with your children. Those 5 things I talked about, please have that discussion. Let them know. If you get pulled over, put your hands on the steering wheel and stay like that. When the officer approaches, they're going to say, driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, or maybe this is why I stopped you or whatever. Cool. All right. My driver's license is in my pocket. It's in my left pocket in my wallet. I need to reach in and grab it. Is that okay? Sure. Go ahead. Grab the wallet. Okay. My registration insurance is in my glove box. It is over there. I'm going to have to reach over there and grab it. Is it okay if I do that? Yes. Go ahead and do that. Cool. Reach over and grab it. Here are the documents you asked for. Hands back on the steering wheel. And I can tell you, I was contacted by law enforcement as a witness. Okay. Not a suspect, not a victim, well, sort of, but a witness. And I immediately pull over. They get behind me. I put my hands on the steering wheel and I didn't move. And when they approached me, I said, hey, this is who I am. Just so you know, I have a firearm on me. It is on my right side. I have my wallet in my left pocket. I need to reach into my wallet to get my ID. Is that okay? Yep. All right. I'm reaching into my wallet and I made stupid movements. Why did I do that? It wasn't race. It wasn't discrimination. It wasn't police brutality. It wasn't anything. It was so that I could go home and that they could go home and that we all feel safe about this contact that we're in right now. And me, as a 14-year law enforcement veteran, still did exactly what I would encourage everyone to do. I still kept my hands on the wheel. And then when they took my ID and they did all the stuff, I put my hands back on the wheel. And then I took my hands off the wheel to do whatever I needed to do for them. And I put my hands back on the wheel. And I had the light on in the car so that they could see what was going on. and I didn't make any assumptions as to, questions or anything like that. That's part of that remain calm. Don't go and start with, why the fuck you stopping me? You stopped me because of this. No, that's probably not why. And they're going to tell you why. I guarantee it by the time the contact is over. Don't start off being a dick, because it's probably going to end poorly for you. You may even get off with just a warning if you're calm, cool, collected, and reasonable. Yes sir, no sir, whatever, blah, blah, cool. They'll probably cut you loose. So don't be a pain in the ass, okay? Talk about those 5 things, okay? Make sure that your kids adhere to it, and they'll grow up to be better people. And not only that, they will come home safe every day. So please have that discussion. The next topic we're going to cover is the misconceptions, and a little bit of that was just covered. We're going to kind of touch on it, but more in depth. I think there is a lot of misconceptions out there, and to really bring it down to 5 is not doing justice to the problems that we're facing right now. But I feel like these are the big ones. These are the big ones that I usually hear about, and these are the ones that I think we should touch on. So the very first one is from the Washington Post, that they came up with their own misconceptions or myths of law enforcement. And one of the myths that they put in their article was that police can effectively help people with mental health crisis. They say that law enforcement is not capable, and it actually says it in the bottom paragraph. Police are ill-equipped to play this role. They say that between 25 and 50% of all people killed by police are having a mental health crisis. That is a mental health problem. That is not a law enforcement problem. That 25 to 50% of people that would die anyway if a social worker showed up and then got killed by the person having a mental health crisis. So understand that officers are very well equipped. I went through a course multiple times on mental health. The big one was CIT training, crisis intervention team, where I was given classroom instruction and then even scenarios where I had to talk people down from a ledge and do all these different things. Then couple that with my academy training, couple that with my field training, because I really didn't make any decisions for probably a good three months in field training on top of my 6 months of academy plus additional training, which is when I got that CIT stuff. Everybody in our department was supposed to be CIT certified. So then even more after that, additional classes on dealing with people having a mental health crisis. Police are equipped. They are trained. The fact that the Washington Turd says that they are ill-equipped is the biased media nonsense that I was talking about earlier. This is a prime example of the agenda that they want to push, that law enforcement is bad, blue man bad, and that they, the civilians and everybody else are going to be killed by all these cops, these rogue cops and things like that. And it's just not the case, okay? Officers can respond. They can go to a call. They can keep some distance. They can call inside. They can have the dispatcher call inside. They can knock on the door. They can put some distance between them and try to make contact, find out what's going on. They can talk to family. They can find out what's happening from them. They can make decisions based upon the law. The law states that they need to be a danger to themselves or others. And at that point, they can then take them into their custody and bring them to a mental health facility. Now, I can tell you probably 8 out of 10 times that we've taken people to a mental health facility on a mental health hold or a 72-hour hold. They were released within 24 hours. The problem is not law enforcement. The problem is the system. The problem is mental health. We are not putting efforts, money, training, all sorts of stuff into mental health. We are not taking care of this as a problem. We are throwing drugs, pills at it and saying, oh, it'll go away. It'll go away. Take these pills. Take these pills. and we're not treating mental health. We're not coming and finding the root cause to mental health, or, issues, bipolar, depression, suicidal stuff. We're not looking at what is causing this and how do we remedy that? How do we make quality of life better as a society? It has nothing to do with law enforcement. It has to do with the society problem. And mental health is a huge problem. And so I can tell you that law enforcement is trained. They are equipped, needless to say, contrary to Washington Post, they are equipped. They are capable of doing that stuff. I hear this a lot. One of the, well, I'll get to that later, the misconceptions, but I hear it a lot. I hear it on Twitter that law enforcement needs to be pulled away from these situations. And even one of the presidential candidates said that law enforcement needs to be taken out of these equations, and that, these civilian mental health professionals need to step in. And I can tell you what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of bodies. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to get injured and killed as a result of being put into, this is not an office. This is not a psychiatrist. This is not a shrink. You're going into their office to sit down and lay down on their couch and go, I'm having issues. That is not what this is. A person in a mental emergency crisis is ready to kill themselves or ready to kill other people or doing something, or threatening to blow things up, or having some sort of bipolar or manic episode or something. And a civilian is going into that situation. It's like taking a civilian and putting them on a battlefield. And mental health is a battle. It's a battle we're trying to fight. And I would love to say that in every law enforcement contact with somebody in a crisis, everybody goes home. That is the ultimate goal. Everybody goes home, right? The civilian and the law enforcement officer. But sometimes people's actions don't allow that to occur. And you're going to throw a civilian into that and say, have at it. And these people are going to go up to the door. As soon as they open the door, you're going to get shot in the face. As soon as something is going to happen. We haven't seen it yet because it doesn't exist. Some cities, some states have these programs where they ride along with officers. Some have programs where these people are running around doing these calls. But rarely are you seeing them get put into solo a situation with someone who's having a real crisis, that they are going to hurt themselves or others. And I think people need to understand that that is not an appropriate situation for a civilian that is unarmed, that can't defend themselves, could be taken hostage, could be killed, could be injured. Law enforcement needs to be there. 100%. Law enforcement needs to be there, and medical people need to be on standby. Because if it's something where they're going to hurt themselves, they may have already taken pills, they may have already done something, and they're about to die. And we need to have medical standing by. And sometimes I went to a suicidal call. Oh, so-and-so took a bunch of pills. Cool. Have medical standby. Have them down the street ready to go. I would go in first. Hey, how you feeling? Did you take some pills? Yep. All right, cool. Bring in medical. Get on the radio, and medical would come in. So I would still talk to them. I would still do all the different things I would do with somebody having a mental health crisis, but I knew what this situation was. I had the resources readily available, and we got through it. And I think that is something that a misconception that law enforcement's not capable and not trained to do it. I can tell you they are. The next one is law enforcement will kill everyone they come in contact with. And that was a huge one this year. Law enforcement's killing everybody. And in episode 1 or 2, we talked about law enforcement lethal contacts. An unarmed person was 0.0005% or some nonsense. And an armed contact was 0.0002%, something like that. And so these numbers come about from the total number of people that shot or killed by police and total contacts made by law enforcement throughout the year. millions of contacts are made, millions a year. At least I used 50 million when I did my numbers. It's at least 50 million. That's a low end number. That's like COVID-19 number, like we're all in our houses stuck inside and we're not coming in contact with police kind of numbers. It could be upwards to 100 million. It could be a lot. And so cut those numbers in half, those percentages. Law enforcement comes into contact with people on a daily basis and nothing happens. Oh, I don't hear about it because nothing happens. The media doesn't think it's important. The media, it doesn't fit in an agenda. The media is not going to show you the officer that goes out and plays basketball with 3 kids. It's not going to show the officer that goes out and deals with the noise complaint. It's not going to go, show the officer that responded to the 2-car crash where they come in contact with 4 people at the scene and not one of them dies. Not one of them is killed by law enforcement. And so the misconception of, cops kill everybody and there's so many percentage chance of blah, blah, blah. No, I just told you what the percentage is for all races combined. 0.002 or 0.0002% and 0.0005%, there might be an extra zero in there, of unarmed people of all races combined. So we've got to stop with this craziness. It's a very common misconception. I see it all the time and it drives me freaking crazy. Law enforcement is not out to kill you. They will not go out to kill you. I've never known anybody in my 14 years that said, I'm going to kill someone tonight, and they go on shift. I can tell you a sergeant would grab them, probably take away their gun, take away their badge, take away all their stuff, put them in a room somewhere, and have them committed if they said something like that. That stuff doesn't happen, I can tell you. Third misconception, police racially profile and target specific groups of people. So here's the thing to understand with racial profiling numbers. So you can throw numbers around all day long. I'll just say, cool story, bro, and move on. Numbers are irrelevant in the sense, more often than not, in the sense that communities have a makeup. So you look at one, the community I worked in for the majority of my time in law enforcement was Hispanic. And very, very heavy Hispanic population. Like probably 9.5 out of 10 times I contacted a person, they were Hispanic. I worked at night and I worked weekends. And those were the people I came in contact with. And generally speaking, the 20 to 40 range was the age. Okay. So if I pull a vehicle over, there was a good chance it was going to be a Hispanic person. It was a good chance that when I made contact with them, that I'd say, this is the reason, blah, blah, blah. And I have even had them come back with, you stopped me because I'm Hispanic. No, you just so happen to be Hispanic because you live in a Hispanic neighborhood. And this is my area. Now, I know in Colorado, in Denver, there's different pockets of predominantly one race versus another. There's obviously a mix, but I see a good number in Northwest Denver, Southwest Denver, Northeast Denver, way Northeast Denver, like Montbello, Southeast Denver. It's a different makeup of people. And if you ask an officer, what kind of person do you normally contact? It's all 30s to 40s white males, or it's 20s to 30s black males, or it's whatever the general kind of majority makeup is in those areas. So when you throw statistics around, and I could find statistics and talk about it, but it's pointless, is if I work in that area, those are the people I make contact with. I am not stopping you because of your race, unless, yes, it does happen, where someone airs on the radio, there's a black male with a white shirt, blue jeans walking down the street. If I see a black male in a white shirt and blue jeans walking down the street from the direction that they aired, they said westbound on this street or whatever, and I turn a corner and there is a person matching that description, yes, I am stopping you because you are a black male with a white shirt and blue jeans. Totality of the circumstances, not because you're a black male, but because you match the description of the suspect or whatever it is that I'm looking for, maybe even a walkaway elder person. I'm going to contact that person because they match the description of what I was aired. It's not because they're black. It's not because they're Hispanic. It's not because they're Asian. It's not because, whatever. I am stopping them because of the totality of the circumstances. Law enforcement will see things and go, man, that looks sketchy. Somebody comes out of an alleyway, throws up their hood, sees the police car drive by, turns around, goes like this, covers their face up, turns around and walks back down the alley. That's weird. That's suspicious. It has nothing to do with race. That was just a very suspicious thing to happen. When someone comes towards the police officer, sees them, and then turns around and walks away, that's weird. That's weird. And you're probably going to get contacted if there's a reason, if there is, say, a high crime area, if they're looking for a specific type of suspect, if there's descriptions of previous calls of somebody in a hoodie going through the alleyways, kicking in back doors, or whatever it is. That is the type of stuff that you see the profiling, but it's not technically, and it's not really racial profiling, and it's not profiling that's illegal. There are some legalities, but if I am an officer and I work in a neighborhood, and my neighborhood has 15 back doors kicked in between the hours of midnight and 1 a.m., and the only thing we know is that the suspect wore a black jacket, and I'm driving down the road, and at 12:30 in the morning, I see this person come out of the alleyway in a black jacket that's right near where all these houses are. Yes, is that considered profiling? Sure. Is there, and I make contact with them, say, hey, it would be a consensual contact. It would be, hey, what you doing, man? Oh, I'm doing this. I'm going, oh, okay, cool. Where are you coming from? Okay, yeah, all right, cool. You got an ID on you just so I can, jot down who I talked to and blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. And we're doing this contact, and we're doing this thing like a, consensual me to you, kind of contact. Now that person in a consensual contact could leave if they so chose. I could say, am I free to leave? Yeah, you're free to leave. All right, cool, see you. And then they're on their way. So that, understand that those incidents occur, and that's why. Law enforcement does not go out and say, I'm going to stop 10 Hispanic people today, and I have a quota. That stuff just doesn't occur. They don't go out into the neighborhoods and target people. Does it happen? Yes. I'm not going to lie. In some of these, towns and cities and whatever, somewhere across the country, is there a crappy law enforcement agency? Yes. Yes, there is. There is some garbage law enforcement agency somewhere that hires garbage people, and the garbage people are probably abusing their citizens. Is it a nationwide epidemic? No, it is not. I can tell you from experience. I can tell you from what I've seen, what I've heard in different agencies, in different places, in different parts of the country, and the people that I talk to, it is not a nationwide epidemic. It is not a nationwide abuse of citizens. So that is a common misconception that also drives me crazy. There's a question in the chat. I want to get to that afterwards. Next misconception, that police are not allowed to defend themselves. So we see more often than not these, the newest video, the guy with the knife, he comes out, kind of chases the officer around a little bit, goes between the cars, goes out into the street, and then gets shot as he's approaching the officers. People seem to understand or think that law enforcement's not allowed to defend themselves. They think that officers cannot shoot someone with a knife, or unarmed, or whatever it is, whatever the circumstance is. They're not allowed to defend themselves, and if you kill a person, you are guilty of murder, and you are a terrible person, and you should be fired. That is a common thought process right now amongst some radical people in this country. And unfortunately, it is the vocal minority that is speaking up and saying this. And I see it literally every day. Every day I see people saying that they had no right to shoot that person. Au contraire, they did because of XYZ and ABC, these reasons. And people don't understand that an officer is allowed to defend themselves. An officer is allowed to defend you. So if you are having a domestic violence situation, officers arrive on scene or are called to the scene or see the scene, pull up, and you're fighting, and he pulls out a knife or she pulls out a knife and advances towards the officers or advances towards the other person in that domestic violence situation, the officers have a legal right to defend themselves and defend a third party from deadly force or serious bodily injury. And so people need to understand that officers deserve to go home just as much as everybody else. And the unfortunate side effect of doing stupid shit is getting killed. You approach an officer with a weapon, you may not go home. You fight with an officer, try to grab their weapon, you may not go home. You get behind the wheel of a vehicle and you try to run a police officer over, you may not go home. And that is an unfortunate side effect to doing stupid crap. And people need to understand that law enforcement is allowed to defend themselves. They feel threatened. They feel like they are going to be a victim of serious bodily injury or death, that they are allowed to defend themselves. And people need to understand that. That is a common misconception. You see it a lot, and it drives me crazy. This last one is important. It's important, but it's stupid. Okay? And I blame television. I blame television for it. And it is the common misconception about policing that law enforcement officers need to advise you of your Miranda rights when you're arrested. No. And I can tell you that a law enforcement officer can make contact with you, handcuff you, take you to jail, never say a word to you the whole time, never read you your rights, and put you in jail. And it's legally okay. And the reason being is Miranda advisements or Miranda rights are only for questioning. If I want to ask you questions about a crime that the content of what we speak will be utilized in court or can be used in court, I have to give you your Miranda advisement. And people don't understand that. They see television, they see these movies, they see these crappy TV shows where they're not even in handcuffs yet. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used as evidence against you in court, blah, blah, blah. That stupid shit doesn't happen in real life, okay? If they want to, they can. And some departments actually, as soon as they hook you up, they read you your rights. I've seen that. That is policy. That is not law. They are not required to, but they just choose to do that. And if they want to sit down with you across the table and say, tell me about what happened, or even in the car while you're handcuffed and they want to ask you questions about what happened, they have to advise you. The advisement's kind of a sticky situation because stuff like, say you get arrested for DUI and the officer says, do you want to take a blood or breath test? That is not a Miranda advisement necessary situation. They can ask you certain things like your name and your birthday and your address. They can ask you if you want to take that test, if they, different things without advising you Miranda. But I don't know when it happened. I don't know when it started, but this common misconception that you need to, which was, I think, perfectly demonstrated in the new 21 Jump Street movie, where the two idiots are on bicycles. They chase down the guy. They they take him down. I think at one point he's like shooting in the air because he's so excited he arrested somebody. And then they go into the captain's office or whatever, or lieutenant or whatever he is. And he says, we had to let him go because you didn't read him his Miranda rights. No, That doesn't happen. Stop it. And Hollywood needs to stop making crappy movies, crappy television with that nonsense put in there, because that's not how policing works. That's not real. Okay. That's not real life, people. So that is probably the most common misconception I've ever seen. I've seen videos online where they're hooking somebody up, put them in a car, and there's people screaming, "You didn't read them his rights." No, they didn't. And they don't have to. I've arrested people. I picked up somebody from someone else, transported them to jail, put them in jail, and never said a word to them because they were, being a turd. So I didn't want to get into an arguing match with them or whatever. I brought them down, put them in jail. Never said a word to them. Never read them the rights. It's not required in every arrest situation. So people need to understand that. Please, 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 please understand. Okay? Do some research. Educate yourself. Don't be an idiot. I call them the bobbleheads. The bobbleheads that you put them on a dashboard and their head just kind of yes all the time, right? Yes, yes, yes. That's what these people are. These people that go out and I saw it on YouTube, I saw it on Twitter, so I know it's true. You need to do this, blah, blah, blah. Street side lawyers. Stop being idiots. Okay. Use your brain. Okay. Whew. Viewer comments. That's where we're at now. We're running a little bit behind. We're actually going to go over a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to end here probably in the next 10 minutes at most. So, have I ever arrested anyone for burning a cardboard box in their home? This is a question by a viewer. Their own home, or teaching a pug to raise their paw above their head? No, neither. The burning of a cardboard box is interesting. So it depends. Is the cardboard box belong to them? Because if not, it's arson. So it depends on the circumstance on that one. The pug, I'm not really sure what that's all about. That's a weird question, but no offense. But I'm sure there's a story behind that. But yeah, so you have to look at the totality of the circumstances on any given scenario. And so, you look at these guys that burn the flags in these protests, and American flag, burn it, light it on fire. Legally, technically, by U.S. flag code, it's illegal, but it's been held up in court because in court they've determined it's free speech. I personally don't agree with that, but even if I was in law enforcement, I saw that happen, I wouldn't be able to arrest them because of that. My personal opinion is that the U.S. flag code states you cannot destroy a flag, and you cannot, unless you are destroying it because it is a flag that is taken out of service, or something, was done to the flag that the way to remove it and, get rid of it is to burn it. That's part of the process. So when they retire flags, they do that. So that is okay. But to make a point, light it on fire and step on it in the middle of the street, to me should be illegal. That should be something that's not allowed, but the courts upheld that free speech, that's free speech. So that's okay. And I firmly believe in free speech and the right to protest. I am a huge proponent of it. I don't necessarily agree with the statements that people make all the time, but they certainly have that right to do it. However, and this is my point, is if you take the flag, you put it in the middle of the street, you throw some lighter fluid, gasoline on it or whatever, and you light it on fire. Again, we just discussed that that's probably legal. However, if in the course of doing that, you damage the roadway, you have now committed arson, because you have now damaged government, state, whatever property that is, city, whatever county, or whatever the road belongs to. So essentially, you have now committed a crime. In the course of your free speech, you have committed a crime. It goes along the same lines of protesters that throw things. You can't throw things at police. You can't break windows. You can't spray paint. You can't do all this stuff in the course of your free right to protest, because then that becomes criminal behavior. And criminal behavior is arrestable. or finable or whatever it is, depending on what that violation is. But people need to understand that there are limits to your free speech. It's not just completely free. There are some limits. If you start creating some criminal offenses, then you can be held liable for that. So just understand that. We're going to do this quick video. This is a great video. So those listening to the podcast episode, I will tell you what occurred, because obviously you're just going to hear music and some sirens, but I will tell you what occurred and talk about it afterwards. All right, this is a great video, and if you're listening, basically what occurred was there was some sort of a ride, motorcycle ride. For whatever reason, motorcycles they try to pull him over. They couldn't pull him over. They got this motorcycle off to the side of the road. They kind of, I don't want to say boxed it in, but they've got cars kind of surrounding it. The officer jumps out. The guy is jumping off the motorcycle, and in hands down the best Superman move I have ever seen in my life, goes flying over the motorcycle, tackles the guy to the ground. And this is the video I was talking about at the start of the episode that donut operator did a breakdown on. I'm not sure what he's breaking down, but I'm sure it's hilarious. But this is an amazing video. I've had it many times where motorcyclists will get off and run. And in looking at the video, he's not like pulled over and like, whoa, what's going on, guys? And just sitting there. He's actively jumping off the motorcycle. He's doing one of two things: running or fighting. And the fact that the officer leaps over and tackles him and knocks him down, I think was a perfect execution of tactics. And I think he was fine in doing that. It's very possible the third option is he was getting up and he was just going to stand there and go, what the hell, guys? But most motorcyclists are not going to get off the bike. As far as I could tell from watching those videos and different versions of that clip, he was not told to stay on the bike. There was no commands given, I don't think. It was just so fast that he just dove and tackled this guy. And I can tell you many times I have had to use some sort of physical force, and I don't want to say like punching or choking or whatever, just grabbing physical force to prevent a motorcyclist from escaping. And one very particular incident, I watched a motorcycle popping wheelies going down the road. He's going back and forth. And I said, I've had enough of this guy. So I got in behind him, and he was at a red light. I got out. I closed my door nice and quietly. I walked up behind him, and he had a backpack on, and I grabbed the little strap on his backpack, and then I tapped him on the shoulder and said, police. And he turned around and looked at me, and he gunned it. And when he gunned it, I had a hold of his little backpack strap. He came off the bike, and then his bike went down and he went down, and then I hooked him up. The guy had like a butterfly knife. He had some brass knuckles or something. I don't remember what it was, but he had a bunch of stuff on him. He got arrested. But that is a prime example that motorcyclists will often flee or fight. I had another one where I stopped him one time. He kind of dipped out on me a little bit, thought he could get away. I was on him pretty good. It was just like two turns, right? And he pulls in this alleyway, and as he gets out off the bike, his shirt vest thing comes up, and he's got a gun in his waistband. And Johnny on the spot, boom! I popped my gun up, pointed my gun at him, told him if he touches it, he's dead. And he's like, no, it's fake, man, it's fake. I said, get on the ground, get on the ground. Got on the radio, got one at gunpoint. This is where I'm at, blah, blah. Turned out to actually be a BB gun. And he carried it for protection, because if people were going to do something to him, he'd pull it and point it at them. But obviously that's not going to do any good, especially if they pull out a gun. But I've had many incidents where motorcycles are armed, fight, run, whatever it is. I don't know what would have happened in this scenario, but it was an amazing dive. And it was amazing to watch. This guy should probably look at NFL, or at the very least an indoor football league or something, because that was pretty awesome tackle. It was pretty impressive. So anyway, that's the episode. That's what I wanted to cover. I covered all the topics I wanted to hit on. Last viewer comments was that butterfly knife. Butterfly knives can be illegal. It just depends on the state, the city, the county laws. So you just have to spin up on your local laws. Let's see. Couple comments. Cool. Well, I appreciate the comments, guys. One thing I really like about and would further along these episodes is viewer comments. Just you coming in here and talking to me and asking me questions. We get to a certain segment of each episode where I take comments and I talk to you about things and answer your questions and things like that. But I would love to do that in every episode. I would love to have that viewer interaction. So please come back. Please do it again on the next episode. Let me know what you're thinking. We do have a Discord server that you can come in and actually talk to me. Use your voice and actually talk to me and ask me questions or comment on the topic. I will allow certain points in each segment to allow people to do that. Now, if you're coming to us from Twitch, it's going to be at the bottom of the channel. There's a button for Discord. You can click on that and it'll bring you to the Discord server. If you're joining us on Pandora, Spotify, Anchor, iHeartRadio, whatever it is, you will still have that link in the description of each episode video. And if you're coming to us from YouTube and watching this video after the fact, not live, then that link is also supplied. So please join us during live airing of episodes, which are every Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, for roughly an hour. We've got about an hour and 10 minutes now, I think. So we will have future discussions, topics, and guests on. This is episode 6. We're just starting up and getting rocking and rolling. It's only going to get better from here. So future episodes, we will encourage you to come in, have a chat with us, and interact with us. Even the guests too. If you have questions for guests and things like that, we want you talking. So please come back and hope to see you guys again. Someone said, sorry about your back. Yeah, me too. This is rough and this is hurting me a lot sitting in this chair, but luckily this is a comfortable chair for me. So I should be okay for just a few more minutes. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode on Friday. And we will be here. It will be the 13th, Friday the 13th. Whoa. Hope to see everybody there and catch you on the next one. See you.